What if the loudest person in the room is often the poorest in the room, not because they have less money, but because they have a greater need to prove that they have it? And what if wealth has a strange preference? It does not always want attention. It does not always want applause. It does not always want to be seen. Sometimes, wealth wants something much quieter. Silence. But why? That is the riddle. And before you answer it, consider something even more uncomfortable. If you suddenly became wealthy tomorrow, would your wealth actually become safer, or would your desire to show it begin quietly destroying it? Imagine two people receiving the same amount of money. One immediately changes everything. New clothes, new car, better phone, expensive restaurants, weekend trips, a larger house, a lifestyle that tells everyone, without saying a word, I have arrived. The other person changes almost nothing. Nobody notices. The first person receives admiration. The second person receives silence. Yet years later, something strange happens. The person who looked wealthy may be struggling to maintain the appearance. The person who looked ordinary may have accumulated something far more powerful, options. And that is the first clue. Wealth is not merely what you can buy. Wealth is what you can continue to afford without becoming financially fragile. So why does wealth love silence? Because silence protects wealth from one of its greatest enemies, comparison. The moment your financial life becomes a performance, your definition of enough stops coming from you. It begins coming from other people. Someone buys a bigger house. You need a bigger house. Someone upgrades their car. Suddenly yours feels old. Someone posts a luxury vacation. Your ordinary weekend begins to feel like failure. Someone announces an investment return. You start wondering whether you are falling behind. And without realizing it, you stop managing money. You start managing appearances. That is expensive, because appearances have no natural stopping point. There is always someone richer. Always someone driving something better. Always someone living somewhere more luxurious. Always another level. So the person chasing status is trapped in an infinite financial game. But the person who can remain silent has discovered something extraordinary. You do not have to participate in every competition you are invited to. Now here is the second clue. Money becomes powerful when it remains available. Cash sitting quietly may look unpredictable, but liquidity can be a form of freedom. It allows you to survive an emergency without selling investments at the worst possible moment. It allows you to take advantage of an opportunity when everyone else is forced to retreat. It allows you to wait. And waiting is one of the most underrated financial advantages. Because desperation makes expensive decisions. When you desperately need money, you negotiate badly. When you desperately need returns, you take excessive risks. When you desperately need to maintain a lifestyle, you borrow. But when you have financial breathing room, you can say one of the most powerful words in finance, no. No to the bad investment. No to the unnecessary loan. No to the pressure to impress. No to the temptation to chase what has already become expensive. Silence, therefore, is not inactivity. Sometimes silence is capital waiting for the right opportunity. But the riddle goes deeper. Why do people feel uncomfortable when nobody knows how much they have? Why does keeping wealth private sometimes feel almost unsatisfying? Because human beings are wired for recognition. We want our progress to be witnessed. We want somebody to know that we succeeded. And money can become a scoreboard. But here is the trap. The moment money becomes a scoreboard, spending becomes a form of communication. You are no longer asking, is this worth the money? You are asking, what will this make people think about me? Those are completely different financial questions. One protects capital, the other consumes it. And perhaps this is why genuinely durable wealth often looks surprisingly ordinary. Not because wealthy people cannot spend. Because they understand the difference between being able to afford something and needing to own it. That distinction changes everything. Suppose you can afford a luxury purchase. The question is not simply, can I pay for it? The wiser question is, what does this purchase prevent my money from doing? Because every rupee has an opportunity cost. Money spent cannot simultaneously remain invested. Money committed to unnecessary obligations cannot remain flexible. Money used to maintain an expensive lifestyle becomes money that must be earned again. And suddenly, the luxury purchase is no longer just a purchase. It becomes a future obligation. This is where silence becomes financial wisdom. The quiet person can allow money to compound without constantly interrupting the process. No announcement, no applause, no explanation, just time. And time is where small financial decisions become enormous. A rupee invested wisely and left alone can become something much larger. A rupee repeatedly spent to impress someone becomes nothing. That is the paradox. The money that attracts the least attention may create the greatest future freedom. Now imagine your financial life as a tree. Where do people notice first? The leaves, the branches, the fruit. But what keeps the tree alive? The roots. And roots are silent. Nobody applauds them. Nobody photographs them. Nobody asks how impressive they look. Yet the entire visible structure depends on what nobody sees. Savings are roots. Emergency reserves are roots. Low unnecessary debt is roots. Investments are roots. Financial discipline is roots. And lifestyle restraint? Roots again. The world celebrates the fruit. Wealth is built in the roots. So perhaps the real question is not, how wealthy do you look? Perhaps it is, how much financial strength exists beneath what people can see? Because appearances are visible, resilience is not. And when life eventually tests you, when income falls, markets decline, opportunities disappear, emergencies arrive, the difference becomes obvious. The person who spent everything maintaining an image suddenly needs help. The person who quietly accumulated financial strength suddenly has choices. And choices are a form of wealth. That may be the answer hidden inside the riddle. Wealth loves silence because silence gives wealth room to grow. Silence prevents comparison from becoming consumption. Silence prevents success from becoming lifestyle inflation. Silence protects capital from unnecessary attention. Silence allows compounding to work without interruption. And perhaps most importantly, silence teaches you something money alone never can. You do not need to prove that you are wealthy to become wealthy. So the next time you receive money, earn more than expected, make a profitable investment, or reach a financial milestone, pause before announcing it. Ask yourself, do I need recognition or do I need preservation? Do I need to look richer or become financially stronger? Do I want something that impresses people today or something that gives me freedom years from now? Because the deepest form of wealth may not be the ability to say, look what I have. It may be the quiet confidence to say, nobody needs to know. And perhaps that is why wealth loves silence. Because money grows best when ego stops demanding to be heard.